The apartment was on the 5th floor and the elevator was out of order. He climbed the stairs step by step, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the game console. When he arrived at the door of his house, his phone vibrated, and Su Wan sent a message, "I have a shift tonight. I'll be back later." He replied, "Okay, go to bed early." He opened the door and entered the house, putting the suitcase on the coffee table in the living room. Warm up a cup of instant noodles in the kitchen and take it apart while eating. There is a USB port on the side of the fuselage, which is surprisingly modern. He searched using his laptop, which was similar to an arcade simulator, but there was no model record. Curiosity aroused, he connected the extension cord to the TV and the USB to the laptop. The screen lights up, buzzes, and the menu appears. There's only one game, Tunnel Dash. Tunnel Sprint? Chen smiled, threw the remote control aside, and held the joystick. When the game starts, the screen goes into an endless tunnel, the blue light wall quickly recedes, and the car rushes forward. He pressed the button to speed up, and the tunnel was winding and narrow, with occasional blurry shadows flashing past like distorted faces. He shakes his head in pixel style. After playing for 10 minutes, he caught the rhythm, avoided obstacles, and the speedometer soared. There was an echo deep in the tunnel, a low hum, like wind passing through an iron pipe, or like a distant whisper. He turned up the volume and vaguely heard, "Come back, come back." Background sound effect? Or a developer Easter egg? He concentrated on the operation, sprinted against the wall, and finally crossed the finish line. The scene freezes, you win. The score flashed, and he breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off his hands. Chen walked down the stairwell of the company, and it was already dark. I worked overtime until 9 o'clock, and my head was still full of debugging gibberish. He turned into the alley, and the cardboard boxes at his feet caught the toes of his shoes. Looking down, I saw an old game console stuffed inside the box. The black plastic body was covered in dust. The joystick and 2 buttons were intact, like an arcade machine from the 1990s. "Free delivery" was scrawled on the box, and it was clear that no one cared. He hesitated for 2 seconds, as a programmer, wanting to dismantle it and take a look at the internal structure, then picked up the box and stuffed it into the back of the motorcycle and rode home. Nice retro stuff. Chen stood up and stretched, grabbing his phone to check the time. The screen suddenly blacked out and flickered like it was restarting. It's not his Android system, but blood-red fonts, crawling from bottom to top, the evil spirit has awakened. He was stunned and rubbed his eyes thinking it was a virus. I slid my finger to force it to shut down, but the font spread into cracks, and low-frequency vibrations came from the phone, like the inside of the phone was breathing. The screen returned to normal, but there was an unsourced voice in the notification bar. He clicked on it, and it was blank, just static electricity. He took a step back, and the sound shifted, now coming from the wall, like a whisper squeezed out of cement cracks, gradually adding up into a loop. Chen grabbed his cell phone and dialed Su Wan, but the line was busy. Redial, still. He squatted down and inspected the base of the game console. The scratches looked like old wounds, and the surrounding dust was piled up into small mounds. The sound spread, vibrating from the floor, whispering from the cracks in the door, approaching layer by layer. "Come back, we are back." Reason told him that this might be electromagnetic interference or auditory hallucinations. But there were footsteps outside the corridor, slow and dragging, like wet soles scratching the floor. He rushed to lock the door and leaned against the door panel to listen. The steps stopped, the doorknob turned slightly, and then let go. The lights in the room suddenly went off and on again, and the frequency was synchronized with the mobile phone. Chen's heart sank, he turned on the light and walked to the window, opened the curtain and looked into the alley. It was quiet outside and the street lights were dim. The TV is still on, the console menu is pulsing, and the tunnel dash icon is breathing. He walked over and unplugged the power supply. The machine was hot to the touch and buzzed internally. "It's not the fan noise," it's the echo of the game tunnel, come back, is very close at hand, seeping out from the gaps in the fuselage. Chen took a deep breath, grabbed the screwdriver and stuffed it into his trouser pocket. He bent down and stuffed the game console and power cord back into the carton, then dragged it to the balcony door and locked it. He checked the door locks, tightened the curtains, and the room returned to its familiar mess. A half cup of cold water on the coffee table, and the sofa cushions were skewed. At 10:30, he heated up the leftover instant noodles, added an egg, and brought them to the table to wait. Su Wan always works like this during shifts. She comes home late but brings late-night snacks to share. He opened his laptop and searched for Tunnel-Game Console. There were only sporadic old news about arcade games in the 1990s, the developer went bankrupt, and no one mentioned the curse. Fatigue welled up in him, he rubbed his temples and decided to throw away this thing tomorrow. The door lock turned, and Amelia Su pushed the door open and came in, with a medical bag hanging on her shoulder and a few strands of her ponytail loose. She smelled the smell of instant noodles and smiled. You worked overtime and debugged so much that you forgot to eat? Come on, I brought chicken soup dumplings from near the hospital. She took off her shoes, kicked off her slippers, leaned over to kiss his cheek, and pressed the back of his neck with her warm palms. Why do you look so bad? Are you sick? Chen shook his head, held her hand, pulled her to sit down, and gave her half a bowl of noodles. It's okay. I picked up an old game console and played it like it was haunted. I had auditory hallucinations. Su Wan bit the bun and listened while chewing, her eyes serious. Urban legends. Ji Yen likes to tell those, don't believe it. I'm on vacation tomorrow and I'll take it apart with you and look inside. She gave him a piece of egg, her relationship was as usual, and her steady support made his chest looser. Halfway through the meal, the two of them heard a buzz from their phone and the screen lit up. Chen glanced at it and saw that it was a notification light, but there was no new news. He reached out and took it, and Su Wan came closer. Who is it? The screen suddenly went black, flashing like a restart, and the blood-red fonts crawled. The second level begins. The tunnel has opened. His fingers froze, pressing the power button had no effect, and the internal low noise started, like the sound of wind in a tunnel caught in the eardrums. Su Wan frowned, grabbed her cell phone and dialed his number. Hello? Chen, turn off the phone and try. Her voice was normal, but it was covered by a whisper, come back, we are back. It was no longer a loop, this time it was superimposed into a multi-sound track, with male and female voices mixed, seeping out from the phone speaker. Chen suddenly stood up, took away the dinner plate and pushed the table away. Su Wan followed, and her face turned to confusion. What kind of sound effect is this? Virus? The sound spread, not only the mobile phone, the speaker in the living room rang softly, the TV automatically turned on, and the screen went black with only the pulsing blue light of the tunnel. He rushed to the balcony. The box was still locked, and the inside was buzzing in response, like a heartbeat in sync. Su Wan pulled his arm, unplugged the power. She turned around and went to the socket in the corner. As soon as her hand touched it, there was a click on the wall, and the latex paint cracked and slits snaked down from the ceiling, like fingernail scratches. Dust hit his face, and a whisper seeped out of the cracks. He could make out clearly from a close distance, player, come in, accompany us. The cracks expanded across the dining table, the floor shook, and the dishes fell and shattered. Su Wan stepped back, stepped on the gap created by the screwdriver, and almost tripped. She held her ground and grabbed Chen's sleeve. This is not a virus. Are there footsteps outside the door? Chen nodded, hearing the shuffling sound in the corridor restart, and the doorknob turning slightly. This time there were more than one pair, 3 or 4 stacked on top of each other, like a crowd approaching. He grabbed the screwdriver and stuffed it into her hand. Hold on tight and follow me. No longer hesitating, he opened the drawer and rummaged through the key ring, deciding to rush up the stairs first instead of being trapped in the apartment and waiting to die. Su Wan nodded, her position clear. I'll open the door, and you guard the back. Go to the duty room of my hospital, where there are monitors. Her tenacity made him feel at ease for a moment, and the two exchanged glances before pushing the door open. Half of the lights in the corridor were extinguished, and footsteps scattered in all directions, as if coming from a crack in the wall. Chen was in front, Su Wan followed closely, the screwdriver clenched into a fist. They rushed to the stairs, and the door slammed behind them, the lock bolt springing back automatically. The stairwell is dark, and footsteps are chasing me, echoing from above, dragging wetly, like strips of water-soaked cloth fluttering to the floor. Su Wan gasped and whispered, the phone was busy just now, was it interfering? Chen didn't have time to answer, so he dragged her down 2 floors, pushed open the fire door and ran into the alley. The night wind was cold and the street lamps stretched their shadows. They got into the motorcycle and the engine roared to life. The phone was still vibrating in the pocket, and the red lettering shone through the fabric. The pursuit has been initiated. The phone turned on again, the screen cracks enlarged, and the red text reappeared, the first level is over. Prepare to enter reality. He rushed into the kitchen drawer, took out the screwdriver, and pointed it at the game console. The voice twisted into a chuckle, erupted from the fuselage, and all the lights went out. In the dark, he fumbled for the power cord and finally unplugged it. The lights are on and everything is still. The footsteps outside the door restarted and slowly went away, like going to the end of a tunnel, echoing endlessly. Chen slid down on the floor, and the screwdriver rolled aside. Why do the echoes in the game crawl from virtuality into reality? The motorcycle rushed out of the alley and merged into the traffic. In the rearview mirror of the apartment, blue light flashed from the 5th-floor window, and cracks spread like spider webs. Su Wan hugged his waist tightly, where to go? Chen gritted his teeth, and Ji Yan's urban legend sharing flashed through his mind, look for Ji Yan, he knows these weird things. But the echo in the tunnel did not stop, the engine roared from the phone, and the street lights in front of the street turned off in sequence, like the wall of a blue tunnel approaching. The sound of footsteps came from under the asphalt road, faintly tapping under the tires, and the chase continued. The motorcycle engine revved up, and Chen stared at the rearview mirror. The lights in the apartment had become distant. Traffic was sparse, streetlights flickered to blue pulses, and the elevated ramp ahead pointed faintly to the tunnel shortcut. Su Wan wrapped her arms tightly around his waist, her palms trembling slightly through the clothes. Take that tunnel and take the shortcut straight to Ji Yan's house. She reminded in a low voice. Her habit of remembering directions could be heard in the wind noise, like always focusing on the nearest exit when responding to emergencies in the emergency room. The tapping under the asphalt intensified, and every time the tire rolled, there was a wet tug in response, climbing up from the ground. Chen glanced at the road shoulder where the shadow was lengthening and the outline was distorted. He gritted his teeth and accelerated, the motorcycle rushed into the ramp, and the black hole at the entrance of the tunnel swallowed up the light. The phone in his pocket vibrated, and red letters flashed through the cloth, the tunnel has opened. The pursuit is underway. A whisper seeped out from the engine exhaust, and multiple sound tracks were superimposed, player, come in and play with us. The wind picked up the fallen leaves behind, and followed him. Su Wan let go of the screwdriver and turned around to poke at the nearest shadow. The thing retreated for half a second and made a clicking sound, like fingernails scratching metal. She gasped, it's like the footsteps heard by the night shift in the hospital. I always thought they were the students on duty. Her voice was steady, bringing out the nurse's experience, not pure panic. Chen's heartbeat was buzzing synchronously, and the game screen flashed in his mind, the tunnel was endless, and the black shadow was an obstacle. Now they are alive, crawling out of the virtual. He squinted his eyes to identify the road. The curve was approaching, and the side escape door on the wall was marked, emergency exit. Hold on tight, I'll turn. He whispered, slowed down and braked. The black shadow took advantage of the situation and got closer. A line in the middle blocked the view of the car, and the dragging sound drowned out the engine. The inner wall of the tunnel is slippery, and the headlights reveal water stains. Blue light pulses from the cracks in the wall, reflecting the game screen. Su Wan turned her head and said, "There is something behind." Chen saw clearly in the mirror. The black shadow was like smoke at first, and condensed into 3 human-shaped outlines, with no face or limbs, only dragging the ground and tapping. They sprang out from behind, speeding close to the motorcycle, blurring their arms towards the rear of the car, disrupting the line of sight. The locomotive's tail swayed, Chen pulled the accelerator, and the speed exceeded 80 per hour. The black shadow approached, and it grazed the rear wheel, causing sparks and causing the tires to scratch the ground. The shadow's arms wrapped around the edge of the back seat. Su Wan stabbed the screwdriver fiercely, the iron tip was submerged in the smoke, and the thing moved away. Chen turned the steering wheel, the motorcycle slid sideways and scraped against the wall, causing flames to splash. There was a crashing sound from behind, and the group of black shadows hit the wall and scattered into smoke, but the knocking did not stop, and water dripped from the ceiling to reunite. The phone rang, Yen called, and the screen displayed his profile picture. Chen took it out with one hand and pressed answer to open it hands-free. Yen, we are in the tunnel, and the shadows are chasing us. Yen was typing on the keyboard in the background, tunnel dash. I've heard of that game console. In the 1990s, after the arcade developer went bankrupt, it was rumored that the tunnel ghosts were sealed. When the player passed the level, they would crawl out of the screen. Chen tightened his grip on the handle, and light loomed at the end of the tunnel. What to do? Yen gasped, the rule is that at the end of each level, the evil spirits will double. The whispers are calling, and they want the players to be buried with them. Rush out first, and don't stop. The call was cut off for half a second, the signal interfered, and the black shadows reunited. For scuttled from the side walls, sealing the curve. Chen locked the exit and sprinted at full speed. The black shadow accelerated simultaneously, taking the lead to disturb the line of sight above and lower the sense of the body. The wind howled in the tunnel, and the exit was dazzling. The truck's rails are in front, and the driver's door is open and no one is there, as if it's being manipulated. Chen braked and turned right to avoid the situation. The motorcycle rolled over and scraped the ground. Su Wan hugged her tightly and remained silent. The truck passed by and hit the wall, causing sparks to engulf the black shadow behind it. They dissipate and the knocking ceases. The motorcycle bounced up and stabilized. Chen's arm was bruised and bleeding, Su Wan's knees were bruised, and her trouser legs were torn. They rushed out of the tunnel, the suburban roads were empty, and the night sky was sparse with stars. Su Wan pressed his wound, turn around and save us. Her hands were warm, and the relationship became closer in the crisis, turning into a temporary dependence. Chen rubbed his wrist and checked his phone, the red text faded away, second level paused. Yan's clue points out the rules, evil spirits are doubled in each level, and whispers are summons. But he didn't finish, and the developer's details were left in suspense. The phone turned on again, and there was a new message, the third level is warming up. The cemetery mound has been moved. The road sign ahead pointed to the cemetery shortcut, and the dirt road was hidden, like fingers scratching the ground. Yen knows too much, will those who have played with it be marked? Chen clenched the handle and accelerated forward, briefly hopeful and vigilant. Can his legend find out the rules of the game console? Yan's home is in the renovated area of an old workhouse. Blue light leaks out of the iron windows on the third floor, like the reflection of a computer screen. Chen parked the car and rang the doorbell, and the iron door opened with a buzz. Yen went downstairs with his messy hair, wearing plaid pajamas and holding hot cocoa in his hand. You look like you escaped from a disaster movie. He glanced at the wounds and led him into the living room, where comics and circuit boards were piled beside the sofa. Su Wan sat down and rubbed her knees. The black shadow in the tunnel can be touched physically and can be driven away with a screwdriver. Ji Yan nodded, took out the first aid kit from the drawer, and handed the gauze to Chen. Wrap it up first. I guessed it by listening to the phone. Where is the game console? Is it still in the balcony box in the apartment? Chen tied the gauze and flashed back to the day he picked up the machine, the abandoned warehouse next to the junkyard. The mud after the rain was filled with broken arcade machines, and the tunnel sprint stood alone on a corner, with the words, "Don't cut off the power," engraved under the dust on the fuselage. He thought it was an anti-theft tag and carried it home without thinking. Yes, the power supply is still plugged in the lockbox. I unplugged it once and the vision stopped, but now. Ji Yan frowned, grabbed his phone and searched for old files. The game was released in the 1990s, and the developer suddenly closed down. It is said that the last machine sealed the tunnel collapse souls. After the player passed the level, they really sprinted out. He paused, and his eyes moved to the dark night outside the window. But I have a similar one in my collection. I have to go to your apartment to confirm. When Su Wan poured water, her hand shook and the rim of the cup knocked on the table. She turned her head and said, "Just now. I heard whispers, from the water pipes, like multiple people whispering, accompany us in their ears." Her voice was lowered, she didn't scream, she only rubbed her temples, like the guard on duty misheard the heartbeat. Chen held her wrist, her pulse was steady but slightly chaotic. This was the first time she had heard an auditory hallucination. The crisis turned from external to internal, making him more alert. Ji Yan was not surprised. Whispering is a summons, marking players and people around them. "Go get the machine first, and I'll drive." He grabbed the keys, and the three of them went downstairs. The night wind blew up the fallen leaves, and the living room lights shrank into dots in the rearview mirror. The apartment area was so quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. They climbed the stairs and the rusty lock on the balcony box broke. The game console is still standing in place, the screen is black but the body is warm and the fan is spinning slightly, like a living creature breathing. Ji Yan put on gloves to connect the power cord. "Don't touch it." He plugged it in, the screen flashed blue, and the game interface popped up. The second level was paused, and small words in the lower right corner scrolled, "Rule 2, do not shut down. Release when power is off." Chen stared at it, his heart sinking. Chapter 1. He unplugged the power to suspend the vision, but he did not know that this triggered a hidden mechanism. Ji Yan knocked on the casing and said, "This is a new rule, which was not mentioned in the forum before. Evil spirits tie up the circuits of the game. If the power is cut off, they will escape, and the invasion will be faster." Su Wan leaned against the door frame, her eyes wandering. "Here we go again," whispering, "Players are powered off, we are free." She shook her head, grabbed the screwdriver and held it tightly, like a self-defense instinct. Chen pulled her into the house, and the relationship turned secret at this moment. He no longer just ran away, but started to want to protect. "Let's take the machine away and find a way to terminate it." Ji Yan disassembled the back panel of the machine, revealing the old circuit, and the solder joints were engraved with runes, like tunnel murals. The developer didn't simply go bankrupt. I heard it was more involved, a chain curse on the entire arcade machine, sealing away many wronged souls. This one is just the starting point. He closed the door, and red text flashed on the screen. "The third level is activated. The cemetery is waiting for you." Chen pieced it together in his mind. The trapped ghosts in the tunnel are just the beginning. The game is connected to more locations, and the scale of the evil spirits is far beyond imagination. The motorcycle box couldn't fit the game console, so they lifted it into Ji Yan's back compartment, and the sound of the iron sheet echoed like the sound of mopping the floor. Before Su Wan got in the car, her whispers intensified, and she whispered, "They know we have a power outage." Ji Yan started the engine. The consequence is that the evil spirits will proliferate infinitely, no longer limited to the game screen. Chen sat in the passenger seat, the lights in the apartment in the rearview mirror went out, and consciousness came to him. This is more than just a machine or a tunnel. The main line involves the hidden seal of the entire city. The power outage has been opened, and the third level of the cemetery will confirm everything. The suburban road curves into the edge of the city, the street lights form a sparse chain of light, and the low roar of the motorcycle engine gradually slows down. Chen's arm wound oozed blood and stuck to his sleeve, causing a dull pain every time he turned. He glanced at the rearview mirror to confirm that there was no shadow following him and that the dirt road sign had faded away. Warming up for the third level, that side of the cemetery, let's hold steady first. Su Wan whispered from the back seat, pressing her palms on his waist. The bruises on her knees made her sit slightly crooked. Her breathing was calmer than in the tunnel, as if she was forcing herself to return to nurse mode, calming her mind before checking for injuries. The car was driving at night, and the road sign ahead pointed to the branch line of the cemetery. The soil slopes were faintly bulging, like buried objects struggling. The phone vibrated, with red words, "The release has begun. Catch up." Whispers seeped from the bottom of the car, multiple soundtracks were superimposed. Yen accelerated, but Chen knew that the price of violating the rules was opening up a wider abyss. Yen stepped on the accelerator hard, the tires bit the asphalt, and the car swayed over the potholes. The metal of the video game console in the back compartment made a tapping sound, like fingernails scratching the bottom. Chen turned his head and looked in the rearview mirror. Su Wan was curled up in the back seat, her knees swollen and pressing against the screwdriver. She stared at the slope outside the car window, her voice as steady as reporting a medical record. "Those bumps are not caused by the wind." The phone vibrated again, and the red text scrolled, "Level 3. Wake up in the dirt." Chen's heart sank, the proliferation after the power outage was no longer just a shadow, everything accelerated. "I have to try shutting down the phone," Chen said, grabbing the insulation pliers from Yan's toolbox, twisting around and reaching into the trunk. The game console screen is slightly brighter and the fan speeds up. He clamped the power cord. "It stopped when I pulled it out last time. Be careful this time." Yen glanced at it. "No, Rule 2 says it." Chen had already cut it off. The screen flashed red, the fuselage trembled, and all the lights in the car went out. Whispers poured in from all sides. "Power off. Free. Play with us to the end." Su Wan covered her ears and frowned. It became more numerous, like all the sounds in a tunnel piled on top of each other. The car lights came back on and Yen turned into the cemetery branch line. The gravel road was bumpy and the shadow of the tombstone was elongated. The iron gate at the entrance to the cemetery is half open, and mounds of earth are scattered on the slope. There are fresh excavation marks in front of each one. Chen closed the pliers and felt it was hot to touch the case. It didn't stop, but it got hotter. He glanced at Su Wan, and she nodded. "You want to stop it, I understand. But now, we have to survive first." Yen parked the car and grabbed a flashlight. When the developers sealed the place, they used arcade machines to chain many innocent souls. "This cemetery is the second stop," he said as he got out of the car. The night breeze smelled of earth. The three of them stepped on the tomb path, their footsteps making a muffled sound. Su Wan took the lead and swept the mound with her flashlight. There was a bulge in the middle and bubbling soil. "Look over there," she pointed, holding the screwdriver in her palm. The mounds of earth cracked, withered hands stretched out, nails digging into the mud and pulling. A figure crawled up half its body, its face sunken, its eyes staring blankly at them. "Player. Power outage. Come and accompany me." A whisper came from the ground, and the single sound became multi-track. The wronged soul crawled out, covered in mud, staggering towards him, as fast as a rolling stone. Yen retreated. This is not a black shadow, but a physical wronged soul. After the seal fails, wait for the player to trigger it. He turned around and ran towards the car. "I'll open the door." Chen pulled Su Wan. "Quick." She shook her hand away. "I'll block it." The screwdriver pierced out and hit the victim's shoulder. The mud shell shattered and the bones were exposed. It took half a step back, then scratched her calf, its claws digging into the flesh and leaving bloody marks. Su Wan fell to the ground and her old knee injury worsened. She held the wound and checked for blood flow. Slight injury, apply pressure to stop bleeding. She got up and pushed Chen. Run. It only catches me. Chen turned around, picked up rocks and smashed the victim's head, causing mud to fly. It turned to him and growled. You cut off the power and we all woke up. He helped Su Wan get into the car, guilt welling up in his chest. This was his idea, but she got hurt first. The car door knocked, Ji Yan reversed the car, and the tire crushed the tombstone. The innocent soul chased after him for a few steps, and two more agitated behind the mound. More than one. Su Wan gasped and pressed her leg to stop the bleeding, blood staining her pants. She wrapped gauze and moved as skillfully as she was on duty. Whisper came to me first because when I answered your call, I heard the game sound effect was busy. Ji Yan sped out of the cemetery, the car lights swept over his rear view, and the victim's figure shrank back into the ground. I collect that similar machine and picked it up from the same store. He admitted, his hand holding the steering wheel shaking slightly. I played it once in the 1990s and lost it after hearing whispers. I thought it was a legend. Chen turned around. You've played before, why didn't you tell me earlier? Ji Yan didn't pause. I thought it had nothing to do with it, but now the chain is bigger. People who died in the tunnel collapse are buried here, waiting for the power to be cut off. Cracks in trust emerged, and Ji Yan's passion for legends hid the price of his playfulness. Ji Yan turned onto the highway. The termination method is in Rule 3. You have to pass the third level. But after the power is cut off, the innocent souls are not limited to the cemetery. The next stop may be the hospital. The traffic is steady and the cemetery is far away. Su Wan closed her eyes and rested. Her leg injury forced her to lean on Chen's shoulder, and her breathing gradually became steady. Chen looked out the window. Under the moonlight, the shadows on the side of the road were shaking, and there were more and more human figures. He knew in his heart that the first soul was only the beginning, and more spiritual bodies poured out from the chain points. The phone vibrated with new red words, the hospital door is open. Come and play. Whispers seep in from under the engine, and the soundtrack increases to more than 10, locking the movement forward. Su Wan wrapped the gauze. They shouted, play with us to the end, as if they were trying to drag everyone into the water. Chen stared at his phone, and there was a red letter, the first soul released. More wake up. He held her hand, his palm was clammy. It was me who hurt you. I'll stop you next time. She shook her head, her eyes softening. We are together. This blood is nothing. From trying to escape to protecting each other, Chen's heart melted and he promised to bring the relationship closer. Ji Yan's wheels bit the edge of the road, and the engine roared above the whispers. Chen stared at his phone. The red text stopped on, hospital door is open. Come and play, and the edge of the screen looked like scratches by fingernails. He turned to look at Su Wan. She was leaning on his shoulder, her calf under the gauze was bleeding slightly, and her breathing was even as if she was asleep. Can you still hold on? He squeezed her fingers gently. She opened her eyes and smiled. It's better than working the night shift. At least I have you. These words closed the gap, and Chen's guilt turned into determination. He nodded and held her hand tightly. The shadows of the trees on both sides of the road lengthened, and the silhouettes of human figures increased in the moonlight. They climbed out of the dirt slope on the road shoulder, their mud-covered figures staggering after the car, their footsteps sounding like rotten melons. In the rearview mirror, 3 or 4 ghosts were approaching, their empty eyes reflecting the car lights. Su Wan sat up straight and pressed her legs. They are catching up. The mounds of dirt beside the road are all extended by cemeteries. The whispers were superimposed, and more than a dozen sound tracks penetrated from the bottom of the car. Power off. Free. Play with us to the end. The speed of the car had reached the limit, and Ji Yan turned hard. Go back to the cemetery and get rid of them. The tires squealed, the car swerved, and hit the dirt on the shoulder of the road. The headlights of the car illuminate the iron gate of the cemetery. The ghosts of the dead have surrounded the exit, and more figures are rising from the mound of earth, crawling out of the blocked road. Ji Yan braked and smoke erupted from the hood. It broke down. The iron grid is locked. Chen opened the door and got out of the car, grabbed the insulation pliers and the screwdriver, and gave them to Su Wan. Chao's door. The enemy is approaching, and the broken mud shell on the leader's shoulder is exactly where Su Wan stabbed him. It growled, claws scratching the bars, sparks flying. Su Wan stood up, her leg injury made her stagger slightly, but she thrust out a screwdriver to block the claw. Don't get close to him. Her tenacity promoted the relationship, and Chen felt warm in his heart, but he saw more mounds of soil stirring and the encirclement shrinking. Whispers came like a tide, locking the three people's positions, and new murmurs were mixed into the soundtrack. Player. Hospital waiting. The door is open. Ji Yan grabbed the flashlight and scanned the circle. The chain points are not limited to the cemetery, the hospital is the next release point. In the desperate situation, a figure flashed out from the tomb path. A girl with long hair shawl, wearing a gray robe, holding a bell. She stood in front of the mound and rang the bell, her voice clear and piercing through the whispers. The innocent soul stopped and tilted his head towards her, as if obeying an order. The girl turned around, her voice as calm as reciting scripture. Stand back. This is not your player. She sprinkled a handful of ash powder, and a faint smoke floated in the air. The innocent soul retreated, and the mud shell cracked and fell, shrinking back into the earth. Ji Yan glanced from the rearview mirror. My old phone had runes on it when I picked it up at the warehouse, just like yours. I heard whispers and threw it in the mountains, thinking it was over. He admitted more details, tapping the steering wheel with his fingers, as if he was calculating the risk. The developers of the arcade chain in the 1990s sealed the tunnels of the dead souls to cemeteries and hospitals. A power outage triggered full activation. Chen frowned. If you had told me earlier, we wouldn't cut off the power supply. The rift in trust deepened and Ji Yan shrugged. I thought the legend was confirmed now. Rule 3 is on the back of the casing. It may be sealed after passing the test. Clues emerged, but they were accompanied by doubts. The three of them were stunned, and Chen took a step forward. Who are you? The girl put away the bell, glanced at the iron box of the game console, and poked her head out of the trunk. Mushue, the gravekeeper. This game console is a medium, and evil spirits invade reality through the player's control. Cutting off the power only makes them materialize. She revealed the clues, but did not go into details, and glanced at Ji Yan. You've touched something like this before. It smells like it. Ji Yan's face changed slightly and he took half a step back. Trust becomes complicated, Mushue's appearance brings respite, Chen feels guilty, this crisis could have been avoided. Su Wan leaned against the car door to catch her breath. Thanks. But why are they targeting us? Mushue knelt down and touched the traces of soil on the iron fence. Whispering "Stay with us to the end" is a call to all the dead souls to be buried with the players. On the night of the tunnel collapse, the resentment of the deceased was chained to the ceiling point of the arcade. The souls of medical accidents are hidden in the hospital, and they will wake up when the door opens. She stood up and pointed to the light at the end of the road. Go there, before passing the third level, you have to practice mediumship. In a brief moment of calm, Chen nodded, and with an emotional turn, he held Su Wan's hand. Listen to her. We can't run away anymore. Mushua frowned and backed away. Idiot, restart the accelerating chain. Now not only the cemetery, but also the hospital door locks are automatically opened. She rang the bell to block the recent dead souls, the ash powder was scattered, and only 3 smoke retreated. Su Wan stabbed out the screwdriver and shattered the mud shell, but the claw grazed her arm, causing new blood stains. Chen threw rocks to protect her, but he turned guilt-ridden and glared at Ji Yan angrily. You hurt us again. Ji Yan turned pale and grabbed the hot cocoa bottle and smashed it at the victim. I thought I could stop. Rule 3 shows that you need to enter a code to pass the level. The crisis escalated, the encirclement was broken, the innocent souls climbed onto the roof of the car, and the car body banged like rain. Chen pulled Su Wan into the car, and Mu Shui jumped into the passenger seat. Let's go. The hospital is the only point of passage. Ji Yan started the engine, and the car rushed out of the iron gate, and the tire ran over the muddy hand. In the rearview mirror, graveyard mounds surge like waves, innocent souls chase cars, and the highway turns into a battlefield. Red text scrolls on the mobile phone, all doors of the hospital are open. Medical soul awakens. Come and play with me to the end. Whispers burst out from the speakers in the car, and the soundtrack locked onto the lights on the road ahead. The outline of the old hospital was getting closer. Why did it become the next hunting ground? Chen's heart sank, Ji Yan's recklessness pushed him to the abyss, guilt and determination intertwined, he gripped the screwdriver tightly and stared at the dark door ahead. The wheels rolled over the gravel road, and the roar of the engine could not cover up the 20 soundtrack whispering behind it. The outline of the hospital door emerged in the fog, like an old cracked photo. Chen peeked his head out from the back seat, and saw that the mud-covered ghosts in the rearview mirror had gotten closer. They sprang out from the road slope, more than 30 in number, and their claws scratched the ground, making metallic friction. Mu Shui tightly grasped the remaining ash powder of the bell, turned to Ji Yan and said, go straight to the main door. The third level overlays the reality. The door lock is the key. After opening, the medical soul will pour out from the inside. Her words pushed forward the clues and confirmed that the hospital was the chain point. Chen nodded and tightened Su Wan's gauze arm, hold on, we will stop after we pass the level. Ji Yan stepped on the accelerator, and the front of the car knocked open the iron chain. The hospital door rattled and turned under the red warning, and all the iron bolts popped open automatically, as if being pulled by invisible hands. The tire slid into the courtyard, and when it braked, the rear of the car swept over several 4 poles and fell to the ground. The whisper switched from the speaker, and the soundtrack locked on a new target, medical soul. Wake up. Accompany the player to the end. The light bulbs in the courtyard flickered, and the corridor inside the door lit up with a faint white light. Figures wrapped in moldy white robes slowly stood up, dragging broken stethoscopes and needles. There were hollow outlines under the masks on their faces, and they walked straight toward the car door with slow steps. The incident escalated, and the characteristics of the medical soul were exposed, the resentment of medical accidents, allowing them to lock onto the pulse of living people. Ji Yan suddenly went around to the back compartment and grabbed the hand wire next to the insulating clamp. I'll try to restart. Connect the power, maybe reset Rule 3. Chen turned around. Don't mess around. But Ji Yan had already opened the case, revealing the broken wire, and clumsily connected the spare wire. The screen lit up, the game screen restarted, the third level of the dirt scene became reality, and the fuselage trembled violently. The whispers increased sharply, and the 20 soundtrack roared, restart. More freedom. Hospitals are open. The slopes on both sides of the road bulged, and the number of innocent souls doubled, rushing towards the iron fence, tearing the metal with their claws. Ji Yan locked the car door and used his flashlight to scan the end of the corridor. There is an electrical box over there. I'll seal the back door and cut off the internal circuit to suppress the soul. He ran towards the power distribution room, his steps hurried. Chen caught a glimpse of a light red mark on the back of his neck, like the runes of an old machine burning. His doubts deepened, but he had no time to ask. Medical souls surrounded the courtyard, and Su Wan suffered a leg injury. She staggered and stabbed back, but the needle grazed her waist, and new blood seeped out of the fragments of her white robe. Chen rushed forward and hugged her waist, crushing her head with pliers. "I'll carry you, don't be pushy." She gasped and leaned on his shoulder, her eyes flashed blankly, like a screen stuck, and she quickly recovered. "Hurry up," they listened to the whispers. The first change loomed, and Chen's heart tightened, pushing up the emotional pressure. In the hall, the wheelchair automatically rolled into the wall, and red words scrolled on the wall. Rule 3, enter the pass code to seal the soul, all wrong codes will be opened. The game console screen buzzed from the rear compartment. After the restart, the hospital scene in the third level was superimposed, and the mound turned into a bulge on the operating table. Mu Shui pointed to an iron door. "Operating room, the code is on the old computer." She pushed the door open, and the three of them squeezed in. The medical soul claws scraped the door panel, and the door lock clicked and opened. The lights in the room flashed, and 5 souls crawled out from under the central operating table. They wrapped themselves in blood sheets and mopped the floor. They locked onto Su Wan's pulse and whispered, "Nurse, stay with me first." Su Wan's eyes changed again, her pupils dilated for a moment, and she shook her head. "I'm fine," smashed the computer to find the code. Chen opened the keyboard cover, and the screen displayed garbled characters. The clues appeared but were stuck. Ji Yan rushed back from the power distribution room, holding many wires in his hand. "I connected the game console and forced the output of the code. After blocking the internal power, the soul will become insubstantial." He knelt down and opened the case. His fingers trembled slightly when wiring, and the red mark on the back of his neck lit up. Mu Shui whispered, "You smell bad, so the old machine will mark you as a sub-player." Ji Yan didn't raise his head. "Stop talking nonsense, let's survive first." As soon as the wire was connected, the screen flashed the details of Rule 3, the code comes from the player's childhood memory, and if it is entered incorrectly, the entire chain will be released. Chen entered the test code, but the screen refused. The medical spirit broke through the door and stabbed Su Wan with the needle. She blocked it, but her waist was injured and blood dripped on the operating table, and her soul accelerated when she smelled the blood. Chen protected her and retreated her horn. The pliers broke off a needle tube, and his vision was blurred by sweat and blood. "What is the code?" "Childhood." A blurry image flashed back in his mind. The programmer's rationality began to waver, and passivity emerged. He made a misjudgment and did not ask Mu Shui earlier. Su Wan suddenly stopped, turned to stare at the operating table, her eyes were completely empty, and a whisper escaped from her mouth, "Follow me to the end." She raised the screwdriver, not to stab the soul, but to point at Chen. The mutation was confirmed, and the relationship began to break down. Mu Shui pulled him. "She has been invaded. Whisper to lock her pulse first." Ji Yan cut off the power box, and his body was slow for a moment, but Su Wan's arm twitched, as if it was being pulled by a thread. Medical souls filled the operating room, figures wrapped in white robes pressed forward, and the sound of dragging pipes sounded like rain hitting the ground. Chen pushed Su Wan's hand away, hugged her and rushed out. Wan, wake up." She murmured, "Player, open the door." The whispers overlapped her voice, and the 20 tracks expanded to 30, locking the entire hospital. Ji Yan smashed the hot cocoa bottle to block the way. "Back out the door, I'll reset it." But the red mark spread on his neck and the wire fell out. Mu Shui's bell shattered. "The ashes are gone, we are trapped to death." Chen ran towards the corridor with Su Wan on his back, his soul claws brushed against his back, and the wound tore the old gauze. The price was accumulating, and the feeling of isolation was swallowing him up. He gasped and thought, this time it might all be a failure. Su Wan's changes were like a knife hanging over her head, and the edge of failure was approaching. Su Wan held down her arm injury, grabbed the screwdriver and got out of the car. "I'll block the left side." She stabbed the nearest medical soul. The needle broke and spurted out ink-like liquid. The soul took half a step back, but more was squeezed out from the crack in the door. Chen followed and cut off a stethoscope wire with insulating pliers. Electric light burst out and scorched the soul arm. He pulled her back and said, "Enter the hall and find the code of Rule 3. Mu Shui rang the bell to lure the three away. After the dust was all gone, she frowned, the bell failed. "There is too much resentment here. My powder is graveyard soil, not hospital dust." The relationship changed slightly, she exposed the limitations of her ability and relied on everyone to transfer. Chen staggered into the power distribution room at the end of the corridor with Su Wan on his back. The door panel slammed shut behind him, and the iron bolt flicked off and locked. He leaned her gently against the wall and took a deep breath. The insulating pliers smashed the wires inside the door handle, and sparks burst out, temporarily blocking the automatic opening. The sound of the medical souls mowing outside the door piled up, like rain slowly seeping down the sewer. Those things locked onto their pulse and rushed towards the door. He tore off the old gauze on his back, and blood oozed from the new claw marks. His eyes swept over the electrical box in the room. Ji Yen was already squatting there, opening the panel and connecting the wires of the flashlight. Ji Yen slid his fingers along the nameplate of the electrical box, and the red mark on the side of his neck pulsed and expanded. He murmured to himself, "This hospital was built in the 1980s, and the electrical box has old marks, like the game console developer, Forever Arcade." He pulled out his mobile phone, and the search page was reflected on the screen, and he quickly flipped through the yellowed news clippings. Everyone was silent for a few seconds, only to hear the scraping sound outside the door approaching. Ji Yen looked up at Chen. Before the developer went bankrupt, this was their testing ground. The arcade chain sealed the grievances of medical accidents. The code came from the player's personal memory, not random. Did you play a similar machine when you were a child? The news mentioned a childhood accident, and the grievances were identified. The clues were revealed, pointing to the origin of the game. Mushua sprinkled the last handful of dust from the crack in the door. The shadow outside the door shrank slightly by half a meter. She turned around and lowered her voice, "The circuit here is the key. Cutting the main line will make those things disappear for 5 minutes, which is enough for us to take a breath." Her words pointed out the protection strategy and also revealed her familiarity with the hospital's layout. Chen nodded and grabbed Su Wan's hand to check her pulse. Her fingers were cold and still twitching slightly. Whispers escaped from her throat intermittently, "Player, open the door fully." He squeezed her palm lightly, "Hold on, I won't leave you." But in his heart, he thought, is this cold touch not her anymore? Ji Yen didn't stop. As soon as the wire was connected, the main light went out, the outline of the door faded, and the shuffling slowed down. He wiped his sweat and said, "I picked up a second-hand arcade machine when I was in college. I lost it after playing the second level. I didn't tell you because I was afraid that you would laugh at my superstition." He admitted to hiding it and explained the player mark once, but avoided the details. "The focus is on the code, your childhood. Think about the mound in the cemetery, does it look like the arcade when you were a child?" The medical spirit retreated to the middle of the corridor, and they took a breather. Chen slid against the wall, and depressing images began to emerge in his mind. Why did he think of it now? He asked himself, did the boy's scream never leave? Memories came back like fragments. On his 10th birthday, his father took him to the arcade. The tunnel sprint prototype flickered, and he lost his last life. The machine short-circuited, and the current rushed out and burned the arm of the boy next to him. The boy screamed and fell to the ground, his mask slipped off to reveal his sunken face. Later, the news said it was a medical accident, and the Eternal Arcade sealed the scene. Chen opened his eyes, the code is birthday, 1005. He tried to enter it in his mind, and the red letters on the wall scrolled and rejected, and the buzzing intensified. Su Wan suddenly gasped, grabbed his arm, and dug her nails into the old wound. "Chen, don't lose." Her voice was mixed with whispers for 30 tracks, and "Follow me to the end" burst out in full, like a chorus of multiple throats, locking the pulse of the whole room. Mu Shui pulled her hand away. "She's almost invaded. The resentment on the cemetery road is resurrected by the soil. The locks in the hospital are alive. The termination method is to cut off the memory source." She pointed to an old circuit board deep in the electrical box, with burnt runes. "This is the sealing hub, connected to the game console. Restarting requires the correct code. If it is wrong, all points of the developer will be opened. The clues are stacked, and psychological pressure is approaching." Ji Yan nodded, grabbed the circuit board and pulled it out. The red mark shone on his face. His fingers trembled and he connected the game console's backup cable. "I'm trying to forcefully export your memory. Enter 1005 and try again." When the wires were connected, there was a buzzing sound. The operating tables were piled up in the corridor, and the mounds of soil turned into blood sheets. Chen carried Su Wan on his back and cut off a virtual needle tube with pliers. "Wait a minute, that boy," when I pushed open the machine, he hit the needle tube rack. The memory deepened, and the guilt turned into a direct face. He whispered, "The code is not a birthday, but the accident time, 214. The shadows outside the door were thick, the claws were accelerating, and sparks were flying from the electrical box. While everyone was breathing, Mushue shook her head. "The ashes are gone, I can't stop it." "Ji Yan, your marks are burning, don't touch the machine wire." She pulled Yi Chen's sleeves and turned to him with her doubts about Ji Yan. "He is a player and will accelerate the chain." Ji Yan gritted his teeth. "Shut up, I can hold it." He pressed the circuit board, the game console screen flashed, and the red text responded, "Code verification in progress." The medical spirit broke through the door, ink sprayed out, and Su Wan's whisper weakened for a moment, as if she was being pulled back. Yi Chen protected her and stared at the screen. 214, confirm. The screen froze, and the details of the third rule emerged. The correct code blocked the single-point chain, and the childhood resentment was recognized and dispersed. The buzzing weakened, the shadow took 3 steps back, and the virtualization restarted. Ji Yan's neck mark exploded with red light, and his phone dropped to the ground. The screen showed an old photo of him, in front of a college arcade, with machine runes reflecting on his face. The past concealment was exposed. He picked up the phone and said in a hoarse voice, "Wait, there will be a follow-up." While everyone gasped, the game console whispered to a new track, "Second player, it's your turn." Yi Chen's mind buzzed, and the programmer's logic cracked. He squatted down and held Su Wan's shoulders. Wan, tell me, what did you hear?" Her eyes wandered, blood from her waist injury dripped onto the electrical box, and she whispered overlay, "Nurse accompanies me, childhood code." Mu Shui frowned, "Whisper to target the weak points first, she is the most seriously injured. Turn off the source, that game console." Yi Chen turned to Ji Yan and said in a low voice, "How do you know so much? Are the red marks proof that you have played?" The sound of needles scraping the door outside the corridor intensified, the thing smelling blood accelerated, and the air in the room became sticky. Ji Yan's hand was still holding the circuit board, and the red marks on the side of his neck suddenly split open, and red light shot out like filaments, crawling down his shoulders and all over his arms. He picked up the phone that had fallen to the ground. In the old photo, he was standing in front of the arcade machine, with the machine's runes reflected on his face. The buzzing of the game console intensified, and new red words rolled out on the screen. "Second player, unlock all doors. Stay with me until the end." His eyes froze, and he murmured, "Yi Chen, the code does not just seal a single point, the entire chain must be restarted." However, his fingers involuntarily pressed the switch deep in the circuit board, sparks exploded, and the main lines overlapped. Yi Chen rushed forward and grabbed his arm. "Stop, what are you doing? The panel of the electrical box popped open, and red letters spread from the wall to the ceiling, all development points unlocked. The scraping sound outside the corridor came like a flood, the medical soul materialized, the needle pierced the door panel, and ink and blood spurted into the room. Mu Shui grabbed the insulating pliers and smashed a leaky wire. Ji Yan, the university station was not thrown away. He lost the third level, and the red marks are the media. She turned to Chen, look at the old photos on his mobile phone, the dates match. The trust broke instantly, and Chen let go and backed away, feeling tightness in his chest. Ji Yan threw Chen away, and his voice became layered, like an echo stuck in his throat, I can hold on. No, let's play with you to the end. He rushed towards the backup line of the game console and forced it to the electrical box hub, and the hum turned into a low roar. The door panel shattered, and 3 medical souls poured in, attacking the blood stains on Su Wan's waist. The first claw hooked her ankle and pulled her toward the door. Chen used pliers to cut off his claw wrist, and ink splashed on the old wound, making his knees weak in pain. Mu Shui took out the last bell from her waist and threw it towards Ji Yan's feet. The ringing sound was harsh, and the red mark paused for half a second as it expanded. She whispered to Chen, his first victim, the one with the deepest grievances. He has to cut off his memory source, just like your childhood. Ji Yan knelt down and held his head, Chen, I'm sorry. After I failed in college, I said I would wait until next time. I thought it would be fine if I lost it. His explanation solved the mystery of the accelerated chain, and he became a bridge, and the relationship was completely torn apart. Chen carried Su Wan on his back and rushed to the back door of the power distribution room. The medical soul heard the blood and caught up. The needle grazed his shoulder, tearing the gauze and bleeding from the new claw marks. He gritted his teeth and turned around, why didn't you tell me earlier? We believe you. Anger mixed with self-blame, why didn't you pay attention to the red marks earlier? Su Wan whispered, overlaying 40 tracks, second player to accompany me. Fully open. Her fingers dug into the flesh of Chen's arm, and her pulse twitched in sync with her soul. Chen turned around and kicked Ji Yan away. The pliers pierced his shoulder and locked him, Yanzi, wake up. His friend's eyes were empty and he stabbed with his backhand, the needle came out of the red mark and stabbed straight into Chen's waist. Mu Shui picked up the broken pieces of the bell and stuffed them into the gap in the electrical box. Reverse the code, the time he lost the level. Check his old photos on his phone and college records. Chen slid open the phone with one hand, and the date of the old photos appeared. 1 week after 214, Ji Yan posted, the third level of the arcade, lost all at 10:17 p.m. Code 1017. He thought silently, and the game console screen came out from Ji Yan's mobile phone, with red letters scrolling, the first person to recognize the master, the reversal is in progress. Mu Shui followed up and used pliers to open the back door lock. The bell was blocked for 3 seconds, which was enough to unplug the main cable of the game console. But he opened all the locks, and the Cemetery Road Hospital woke up. The mounds of soil in the outdoor courtyard bulged, and the injured souls of the road and the medical souls came in, and the chain locked the vitality indiscriminately. Ji Yan got up, his face flushed, and rushed towards them, it's your turn. He grabbed Mu Shui's bell, crushed it into powder, and whispered in his throat, play with us to the end, all players. Ji Yan's body froze, and the red marks flowed back to his neck, as if he had been sucked into a black hole. He fell to the ground and twitched, Chen, cut off the source and smashed the machine. I'll block them. The medical soul rushed towards him, tearing open the red marks with its claws and pouring ink. Mu Shui pulled Chen, he paid the bill, and the whole lock was temporarily sealed. But the game console is still connected, we have to go back to the source. As the courtyard soul group approached, Su Wan suddenly stood up, her whisper turned into a sharp chorus, her arms were raised and pointed at Chen's throat, her nails turned black like hooks. Surrounded by a group of souls, Ji Yen climbed up to block the front, half of his face burned with red marks. Go. I am the first, seal me. He threw himself into the pile of souls, and the needle ink engulfed the figure, humming intermittently. The whisper of the game console weakened, the full lock retreated half a meter, and the developer's sight was temporarily blocked. Chen carried Su Wan and rushed out of the courtyard. Mu Shui smashed the external wires and followed. The source game console is at home, and his university machine is connected there. I need your final code. The night wind was smelly with earth, and Su Wan hooked the back of his neck with her black claws, possessing him and whispering, Chen, play to the end. The echo of the tunnel in the distance started to echo again, and the ghosts of the highway were chasing after him. Chen pressed her hands. Wan, hold on. Her eyes were completely dark, and her waist was as clean as a healed wound, but ink leaked out. A whisper broke out from her mouth, player, open the door fully and stay with me until the end. The pulse stopped for half a beat, and when it restarted, it synchronized the soul group. She broke away and rushed towards Mu Shui, scratching his sleeves with her claws. Mu Shui backed away. Her weaknesses are all exposed. The childhood boy was not an accident. You pushed the machine to save him, but the needle hit the tube, and the resentment locked you. The new clue forced Chen to look back, and his guilt turned to courage. He grabbed Su Wan. I will take her away, and you cut off the courtyard line. Chen gasped and stared at Mu Shui. How do you know so much? Where do the wakers come from? She did not answer, and sprinkled the powder on the ground. Stay alive first, the hospital is closed. But she invaded all, and the way to rescue is in Rule 4. A red letter appeared from beside her feet, source restart, player sacrifice. The courtyard door lock automatically opened, and a new batch of medical souls poured out. Chen shook off Su Wan's black claws, and the ink slid down his back. He put his knee on her waist and pressed her to the dirt floor of the courtyard. The scraping sound of the soul group is approaching, the smell of dirt from the highway is hitting your nostrils, and the medical soul needle is clanging. Mu Shui grabbed the insulating pliers and smashed them against the iron door lock, causing the red letter to recede from the keyhole. Her pulses are all synchronized. She said while smashing, her voice broken and breathy, Rule 4 is activated. The source machine locks on the host and destroys it, and her soul must be sacrificed. Su Wan stood up, her dark eyes rolling and whispering, and her voice sounded like a buzzer, player, open the door, come with me. Her nails pierced Chen's sleeves and cut open her arm flesh. Fresh blood dripped, the soul group smelled the blood and accelerated, and a medical soul needle pierced his calf. Chen dodged, clamped her wrist with pliers, and tightened it until her bones cracked. Su Wan was no longer someone to rely on, but became the source of the attack. He gasped, how to sacrifice? Just smash the machine. Mu Shui stepped back, her sleeves torn and showing old scars flashing red. She sprinkled the remaining bell powder to block the soul forward, and the gray mist blocked the 3 claws. It's not smashing. She grabbed the tongs and smashed the mound, causing dust to fly. Rule 4, you enter the final code with your own hands and cut off her memory source. The soul will be scattered randomly. Eyes dodge, Chen's chest tightness deepens, she knows too much, but hides half of it. Ji Yen is the first to recognize his master, and his scars will remain forever. He just paid the bill and is temporarily locked up. But the family is at home, waiting for you. Su Wan broke free from the pliers and grabbed Chen's throat, her black claws embedded in the skin. Her pulse was beating wildly, twitching in sync with his heartbeat. Whispers erupted, Chen, play to the end. Fully open. The mound of dirt on the road rose, and its claws stretched out from the edge, hooking Mu Shui's ankles. She smashed the earth claws and shouted, her weaknesses are fully exposed. The resentment of childhood boys locks your blood. Chen let go and stepped back. Su Wan jumped into the air and hit the group of souls, and ink splashed back on her face. He knelt down, his waist was lacerated and bleeding from the needle, and his relationship was torn, his lover turned into an enemy. The group of souls approached 10 meters away, the needle of the medical soul pierced the air, and the low roar of the innocent soul on the highway echoed like a tunnel sound wave. Mu Shui pulled Yi Chen's arm, Ji Yan hid the university computer chain, that's what he was afraid of. She smashed the electric wires in the courtyard, and the buzzing weakened. He lost 1017, and 214 was the starting point in your childhood. All locks must be blocked by him, and there will be another wave in 5 minutes. Yi Chen stared at Su Wan, twisting her body, recalling the scene where she blocked the victim with her leg and laughed despite her arm injury. Feeling guilty, he grabbed a broken branch on the side of the road and deflected a claw hook. Su Wan got up, rushed towards Yi Chen, scratched his chest with her claws, and tore open his shirt to reveal old marks. He opened his mouth and whispered in unison, "Stay with us and restart the source." Yi Chen ducked forward and hugged her waist, rolling to the ground to avoid the needle. His face was pressed against her neck, and the smell of ink replaced her body fragrance. He touched the clean area of the waist injury with his fingers and felt the wax seal. The moment of collapse turned into determination. I could no longer run away. He pushed her away and pounced, stood up and wiped the blood. What's the code? Is 214 enough? Mu Shui knelt down and pointed at Su Wan's black claw. Take her home to the machine, recite the final code silently, and cut off the memory source. Her voice was low and angry. Sacrifice the host, the machine will self-destruct, and the chain will be broken. But your blood is connected to childhood, and the resentment will bite back. When inputting, it hurts like a needle piercing the heart, and all the memories will explode. Yi Chen nodded, and the question escalated, how do you know the fourth rule? Where did the waker learn it? She did not answer, and red words floated from the soles of her shoes. Keeper, the chain is in progress. The souls are surging again, and the needles are like rain. Yi Chen carried Su Wan on his back and rushed towards the iron gate. Her claws dug into her shoulders, her vision blurred in pain, and she whispered, "Player sacrifice." He gritted his teeth and climbed over the fence, hitting his knees on the ground, and the new wound burst with blood. Mu Shui jumped over, the hospital is closed, and the ghosts are chasing after them on the highway. To the east of my home city, hold on until dawn. Su Wan suddenly stiffened, her black eyes flashed. Yi Chen's childhood, smoke in the arcade, scorching the boy before he paralyzed the machine. He pushed the machine to save people and fired the needle tube holder, and blood sprayed out of the boy's face. The memory stung, Yi Chen's feet faltered. That boy, I pushed the machine, he didn't die. Mu Shui smashed his pliers to block his claws. It's not that simple. Resentment will lock you, and the 4 rules must be fully memorized. Yi Chen stopped and pressed Su Wan and grabbed her. Sacrifice her, what am I doing with my life? At the bottom of the turning point, he slid away his phone, and a red letter scrolled, source restart, player sacrifice. The souls broke through the fence and hooked the air with their claws. He took a deep breath and hugged her tightly. Wan, I'll take you home. Rule 4, I'll do it. He ran with her on the night road, chased by ghosts on the highway and echoing in the tunnel. Su Wan's claws were half loose, and her whisper was weak, like a remnant soul struggling. Yi Chen walked into the shade of the roadside, his soul approaching 5 meters away. He turned around and clamped the leader's claws, and the ink evaporated. Mu Shui gasped, the home machine is connected to the line. Before silently coding, interrupt her pulse to synchronize it. Yi Chen pressed her chest, felt for the pulse with his fingers, and paused for half a beat. Her body softened, and her dark eyes flashed tenderly for a moment. Reweaving of relationships, sacrifice is salvation. He silently recited 214 plus childhood clips, the red text on his phone faded, and the screen cracked. The signs of backlash are coming, the chest is like a needle punctured, the boy's bloody face appears in phantom, and the knees are sore and weak. The buzz is transmitted weakly from home. Mu Shui pulled him to rush, stop synchronization temporarily, lock everything down for 1 hour. Home phone waiting. They hit the road and ran wildly, but the soul chase slowed down. Su Wan's warmth turned cold on Yi Chen's back, and she was firm and ashamed. How deep is the truth hidden in that needle tube of blood on the boy's face in childhood? The night wind carries the echo of the tunnel, and the red letter floats in the heart of the road. The final player recalls the day of pushing the machine. Yi Chen's footsteps left mud marks on the avenue, and Su Wan on his back was like a piece of cold lead. Every time he took a breath, the wound on his knee split open, and new blood flowed down his calf. The highway lamppost lengthened its shadow, the sound of a mound of dirt approaching from behind, and the clang of claws scraping the bark of a tree was only 3 meters away. Behind Mu Shui's palace, a pair of ink claws were cut off with pliers, and the residue of gray mist fell out, blocking it for half a breath. She gasped and pulled on his sleeve. It's 2 kilometers from home. There is a line to connect to the university computer. The echo of the tunnel overwhelmed the night wind, cut it off and lock it forever. But first, remember that day. Mu Shui smashed open the bushes on the roadside with her pliers and pulled him forward. More than gasping for breath. She said intermittently, her voice breathless, "You hit the needle tube," and his throat was cut. Blood spurted out on your hand. Red letters floated on the soles of the shoes, "Pallbearer, chained." The soles smell the blood and accelerate, and the needle rubs the ear and draws the hot line. Yi Chen glared at her and asked as he ran, "The sleeve scar, is that Hall too?" She nodded without stopping, "My brother is a boy." After the bell broke, I continued to chase the source. A shock occurred in his mind. It was not an outsider, her target was directly aimed at his childhood debt. Mu Shui is not a savior, but a creditor. This thought hurt his heart, but it made him steady. He must pay back what he owes. Su Wan's whisper weakened, leaving only one whisper, "Chen, go home." The pulse trembled lightly on her back, and the residual warmth seeped into the wound, like an old hug. Yi Chen gritted his teeth and shook off the claw hook. Final code. 214, what to add? Mu Shui opened the way in front, clamping off the side branches of the telephone pole. Add the boy's name, Lin Kai. Silently read 214 Lin Kai. She gasped, cut her memory source, the machine will self-destruct. The backlash will blow up all your memories, and the blood will be disconnected. The cracks in the phone expanded, and the red letter rolled. The final player, recall the day when the machine was pushed. Yi Chen's brooch flashed in pain, and his knees were weak and he nearly fell, but he did not stop, determined to crawl out of the valley of shame, to save Wan and redeem Lin Kai first. The road turned and the lights in the old residential area in the east of the city were sparse. They rushed into the rental alley. The pursuit of souls slowed down, the sound of mounds of soil was 100 meters away, and the rain of needles became sporadic clanging sounds. The 1-hour blockade is about to end, and Ji Yan's price is like an hourglass leaking light. Yi Chen kicked open the door and carried Su Wan straight to the living room. The old game console sat on the coffee table, the screen buzzed and flashed red, the source was restarted and the player died. Ink seeps from the seams, and threads snake around the corners. The props are all here. Mu Shui knelt down and took out the remaining core of the bell, the last gray bead, from his pocket, sprinkled the core to block the backlash. The backup line of the clamp is powered off, and the silent code is entered. Yi Chen laid Su Wan flat on the sofa, his black claws curled up, the ink retreated half an inch, his black eyes flashed the scene of the first encounter. In the coffee shop, she smiled and handed out candy. Feeling guilty again, he knelt down and touched his wrist, gently pinched his pulse, paused for half a beat, and disconnected it simultaneously. Her body softened and she stopped whispering. With his physical strength reaching the limit, and black spots on the edge of his vision, he gasped and leaned against the wall. Ji Yan was the first to recognize his master, with eternal red marks, blocking the university chain. He hid it because he was afraid that I would remember Lin Kai and refuse to play. A friend's recklessness turns into sacrifice, and a rift in trust turns into motivation. It can't be wasted. Su Wan's claws suddenly tightened on her shoulders, and her nails dug into the old wounds, causing Yi Chen's vision to blur in pain. His black eyes were half opened, smoke flashed out of the arcade, and his heart skipped a beat. On his 10th birthday, his father took him into the arcade. The smell of burning machines from the tunnel sprint hit his nostrils. A boy collapsed in front of the console, and the wires short-circuited and caught fire. Yi Chen pushed away the crowd and knocked over the machine to save him, but hit the syringe rack next to the wall. Blood spurted from the boy's face and his throat twitched. "He is still breathing," Yi Chen murmured, his steps slowing down for a beat, guilt sinking into his legs like lead. Childhood unlocked. On the day he pushed the machine, Lin Kai didn't die in the fire, but because of a needle stabbing his throat. He finally looked at Yi Chen's bloody hand and said, "Brother, help." Resentment entered the machine, and the developer took over and used blood stains to test the chain, from arcades to cemeteries, hospitals, and highways. Yi Chen took a deep breath and silently recited 214 Lin Kai. The red text on his phone receded and the screen shattered. The backlash exploded, his chest felt like 1,000 needles piercing his heart, his face exploded with blood, and his knees weakened to the ground. He gritted his teeth and got up, determined, atone for his sins and destroy the source of his sins. Mushua sprinkled the bell core, and the gray mist enveloped the machine, blocking the ink's counterattack. Su Wan arched her body, her black eyes were completely black, and her claws stretched out her throat, accompany, the source. Yi Chen stepped away and clamped down on her wrist. She was no longer an enemy, she was a soul to be saved. Soul groups break through the alleys, dirt piles and claws poke out the windows, and tunnel echoes shake the glass. Mushua pulled the cord, power off, enter. Yi Chen covered the keys with his fingers, the buzzing became louder, and the red letters froze. The ceremony started. Is it sealed? Pain peeked back at him, he pressed it, the machine trembled, and gray mist swallowed the screen. Yi Chen put his fingers on the console, pressed the war number keys with his thumbs, and silently recited 214 Lin Kai 3 times. The red text on the screen freezes, buzzing like a low-frequency pulsation in the eardrum, and the gray mist spilled from the bell core is like cold, wet smoke, slowly seeping in from the seam of the machine, and the sticky coating surrounds the surge of ink. A burst of needles shot up in his chest. His knees became weak and he held on to the edge of the coffee table. His vision exploded with scenes from his childhood, Lin Kai's throat spurting blood, his hand grabbing his sleeve and shaking it for the last time. At that moment, he thought he was saving people, but instead he nailed the source of resentment. The developers used blood-stained machines to connect cemeteries, hospitals, and highways, and tested the chain rules. The pulse locks the medical soul, the smell of blood in the mound summons the souls of the guilty, and the echoes in the tunnels gather together. Mushua clamped the backup wire with pliers, and the arc exploded, disconnecting the 1017 circuit of the university machine. The red marks on the sleeve scars flashed away, and the red letters on the soles faded away. She gasped and confirmed, Ji Yan's permanent connection is broken. Lock everything for 1 hour, which is enough for the machine to self-destruct. The cracks in the window glass expanded, the claws of the souls penetrated, the needles jingled and knocked on the wall, and the echo of the tunnel became a muffled sound in the throat. But the gray fog expanded like a wall, blocking half of the door, and the sound of the mounds rising at the end of the alley stopped abruptly. Yi Chen raised his head, sweat and blood dripping down the keyboard. Is it done? Mu Shui stared at the trembling machine, pinching the handle of the pliers until her knuckles turned white, and did not answer immediately. Su Wan arched up on the sofa, her black claws stretched towards her throat, and ink dripped from her fingertips onto the sofa. Her black eyes were all black, and she whispered, "Source, stay with me." Yi Chen ducked forward and pressed her wrist, fixing it with cold iron, and his black eyes met his eyes, and the scene of their first encounter flashed past. In a coffee shop, she handed him candy and smiled, "Add 2 spoons for dessert." He whispered, Wan, hold on, I'm here." After her pulse was cut off simultaneously, her body stiffened, and her soul overflowed from the corner of her lips like light smoke, lightly wrapping around his wrist. The ritual cuts off the source of memory, the evil spirit roars and explodes from inside the camera, the screen shatters, and fragments spray onto the carpet. Su Wan loosened her claws, the ink receded, her dark eyes gradually became clear, and her chest rose and fell slightly. The peak of the backlash has passed, the pain in the brooch has subsided into dullness, and the blood vessels have reconnected like scabs from old wounds. Chen knelt down and crawled closer to her, feeling for her jugular vein. It jumped slightly, and the temperature returned. Guilt turns to warmth, cutting off her pulse is not abandonment, but redemption. Lin Kai's eyes no longer hurt his heart, but pushed him forward. What you owe is paid off. Mu Shui loosened the pliers, the gray mist dissipated, and the bell core shattered into fine powder. She knelt down to pick up the fragments, and the scars were completely hidden. The day my brother's anger entered the machine, you pushed the machine to put out the fire. She paused and said in a steady voice, the needle belongs to my needle-addicted dad. Before he cut his throat, he grabbed your sleeve and asked for help. Chen nodded without avoiding, so you take over and chase. She stood up, it's not revenge, it's about breaking the chain. The goal has been achieved. The relationship became clear, creditor turned ally, she opened the door and left, the university's backup line is permanently cut off, and the Seoul Group's rules are locked. Ji Yan's exchange for this hour is worth it. Outside the window, the mounds of earth collapsed, the sound of claws scraping faded away, and the echo from the tunnel broke into the low howling of the night wind. The medical soul's pulse lock failed, and the innocent souls on the cemetery road retreated one after another because they couldn't smell the blood. Burnt smoke emitted from the remains of the machine, the source self-destructed, and the evil spirit was forever sealed in the broken glass. Chen picked up Su Wan, her eyes trembled and her voice was as soft as a whisper, Chen, does it hurt? Are you home? He kissed her forehead and said firmly, well, it's all broken. You rest, I'll guard it. She gently held his sleeve with her hand, where the old scar was, that night. I saw you pushing the machine. Don't carry it alone again. When her soul returned, she recalled everything, and her dependence revealed tenacity, no blame, only mutual support. Whether or not the evil spirit can be sealed away forever depends on this moment. Mu Shui's figure stopped at the door and looked back at a fragment on the ground, the heart of the machine. The red light pulsed weakly, as unstable as a candle that was about to go out. She kicked it into a gap in the carpet and said, there's always a home for those who pick up corpses. She turned around and blended into the alley night, not staying long. Chen didn't ask further questions, and carried Su Wan to bed, laying out a blanket and wrapping gauze to treat the new injury. Although Ji Yan's red streak was broken, his friend's last connection flashed through his mind, recklessness turned into sacrifice, hiding the university chain was to protect him from playing. The cracks in trust are healed and turned into everlasting motivation. The sky was gray and bright, Chen was sitting beside the bed guarding her, Su Wan was sleeping peacefully, her pulse was steady. All the cracks on his mobile phone have receded and the scarlet letters have disappeared. From the fear of isolation to the courage to sacrifice, inner transformation, no longer escaping from childhood debt, but facing to protect the one you love. A trace of soot fell from the window sill. Although the seal was completed, there was a hint of uneasiness, the developer's blood-stained test may have hidden secrets. But tonight, new life is theirs. At the end of the alley, the owner of a second-hand store passed by with a cart and kicked the edge of the carpet, causing fragments to bite into the bed of the cart. He bent down to pick it up, a red light came into his eyes, and the pulse was slightly stronger, old antique. It looks good. The wheels rolled away, a low hum started faintly, and there seemed to be an echo from deep in the tunnel.